The sky of Valen burned with colors no human had ever seen. Strange ships cut across the horizon, their metal wings spreading like knives against the clouds. The people of the planet gathered in fear as thunder rolled from machines, not from nature. For them, this was not the beginning of peace. This was the beginning of war. The invaders had come, and among them stood one human boy, smaller than anyone expected, but carrying eyes that held no fear. His presence was the spark that would change everything. The Emperor Valen sat on his crystal throne, watching the scene below with amusement. His warriors were tall, armored in shining plates, their voices echoing across the chamber like drums. They spoke of conquest, of power, of the predator that no one could tame. This predator had ruled their wild lands for centuries, a beast of shadows and lightning, feared even by the strongest of alien hunters. The Emperor laughed as he made his challenge. Whoever tamed the beast would own his planet. The crowd cheered at the thought, yet no warrior stepped forward. None dared to face the creature. None except the human boy. He was thin, with torn clothes and dirt on his skin. His hair was messy, his shoes barely holding together. Yet he walked forward with calm steps, his hands empty, his eyes locked on the Emperor. The aliens hissed and laughed, mocking the idea that such a weak creature could do what they could not. But the boy did not answer them. He only looked at the throne and said, "Show me the beast." The hall fell silent. For the first time, the Emperor's smile faded just a little. Outside the palace, the ground shook. The hunters brought the predator in chains of fire, its roar making the mountains tremble. It was larger than any ship, its black fur shining with blue light, its eyes like burning suns. The chains barely held as it fought, snapping and crushing the ground under its weight. Even the bravest soldiers stepped back when it turned its gaze upon them. The Emperor leaned forward, amused again, certain that this would be the end of the human boy. But the boy walked closer. His steps were steady, his hands still empty. The predator growled, lowering its massive head. Its breath was hot, its teeth sharp enough to break stone. Everyone thought the boy would be eaten in a single bite. Instead, he stopped only a few steps away and crouched. Slowly, he picked up a small red fruit that had rolled across the ground. He held it out, not with fear, but with a quiet kind of respect. The hall was so silent that even the wind outside seemed to wait. The predator's eyes narrowed. It sniffed, its giant nose brushing the boy's hand. The fruit glowed in the light of the alien palace, shining against the dark fur of the beast. For a moment, time itself seemed to stop. Then the predator opened its mouth, not in a roar, but to take the fruit gently from the boy's hand. Gasps filled the chamber. The beast, untamable for centuries, had accepted a gift from a human child. Emperor's hand tightened on the throne. He had spoken in jest, never believing such a thing could happen. The boy turned his head toward him, his face calm, his voice clear. "You said if I tame it, the planet is mine." The crowd erupted in whispers and shouts. Soldiers raised their weapons, unsure if they were now to bow to a boy who had done the impossible. The predator lowered itself, its massive body crouching before the human, as if to shield him. For the first time in many years, the Emperor felt a coldness inside his chest. This was not a trick. This was not luck. The boy had touched something deeper, something no blade or chain could ever reach. He had earned the respect of the predator. The Emperor's laugh echoed again, but it was hollow now. "Interesting," he said. "Let us see how long you survive." The boy said nothing more. He only placed his hand on the beast's head, feeling the strange warmth of its fur. In that moment, he was no longer just a boy. He was the challenger, the one who had done what all others had failed to do. The story of the unexpected war had only begun, and the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The crowd outside the palace spread like waves of the ocean. Aliens of every rank, from soldiers to servants, pressed forward to witness what they had never seen before. The predator, the great terror of Valen, was not chained or raging anymore. It was kneeling. Its glowing eyes followed only the human boy, as if the rest of the world had vanished. The boy stood tall, his hand still resting on its thick fur. His face calm while the crowd trembled in disbelief. The emperor leaned back in his throne, his sharp crown reflecting the crystal light above. His eyes narrowed, hiding the storm in his mind. He had thrown the challenge as a mockery, certain that no being alive could tame the beast. Yet this boy had done it with nothing more than food and courage. To the emperor, it felt like an insult. To the crowd, it felt like destiny. Whispers spread through the hall, whispers that carried fear, respect, and something even more dangerous, hope. The guards stepped forward, their spears glowing with blue fire. They looked at the emperor, waiting for his command. Kill the boy? Drive the beast back into chains? Or honor the words he had spoken before all? The emperor's lips curled into a smile, but it was a smile that carried no warmth. "Let the boy keep his prize," he said, his voice rolling like thunder. "But remember, this one beast does not win a war." The guards pulled back, but their eyes stayed locked on the boy, each one seeing him not as a child, but as a threat. The boy heard every word. He knew the emperor did not honor him out of respect, but because of pride. The alien ruler would never admit defeat in front of his people. Still, the boy had no fear. He looked at the predator beside him, the great beast that had chosen him, and he felt something stronger than fear. He felt belonging. Slowly, he climbed onto the creature's back. The crowd gasped again as the beast rose, towering above even the tallest of alien warriors. The boy sat high, looking down upon the palace steps. The predator roared, a sound that cracked the air like lightning. The crystals in the palace walls vibrated, the ground itself shaking with the force of its cry. Soldiers stumbled back, some covering their ears, others clutching their weapons in trembling hands. Yet the boy sat steady, his small figure firm on the beast's back. It was a sight no one on Valen would ever forget. Outside the palace, word spread like fire. Villages, cities, and camps echoed with the same story. A human boy had tamed the untamable. The people of Valen, long ruled by fear of their emperor and his beastly trials, began to whisper of change. If the predator could bow, then maybe the empire itself could fall. If the boy could stand against their ruler, then maybe they too could rise. The emperor's words were meant to keep his power, but they had sparked a flame he could not control. That night, the boy rested in a stone chamber given to him by the palace servants. The predator curled beside him, its glowing eyes watching the door, protecting him as if it had done so all its life. The servants moved quietly, some leaving food, some leaving flowers, but all lowering their heads when they saw him. He had become more than just a boy in their eyes. He was a symbol, though he did not yet understand it fully. The emperor stood alone in his private hall, staring at the stars through the crystal windows. His advisors spoke of removing the boy quietly, of sending assassins, of breaking the bond between human and beast. But the emperor raised his hand and silenced them. "No," he said. "Let him live. Let the people see him. Let him think he is rising. The higher he climbs, the harder he will fall." His laughter echoed coldly in the chamber, but there was a shadow in his eyes. For deep down, he wondered if the boy's rise could not be stopped. At all, the boy, unaware of the plots swirling against him, dreamed of Earth that night. He dreamed of a world far smaller than this one, with skies less bright and oceans less vast, but with people who had always fought against the impossible. He woke with the sound of the predator's steady breath beside him, and knew one thing for certain. The war had not truly begun yet. The dawn on Valen was like no dawn on Earth. The sky cracked with ribbons of light, colors bending across the horizon as if painted by fire itself. The boy stood on the high balcony of the palace, his eyes wide as he looked out at the alien world. Cities of crystal towers stretched far into the distance, their peaks shining like blades in the morning sun. The predator lay beside him, silent and watchful, its glowing eyes following every shadow. For the first time, the boy felt the weight of what he had done. He had tamed the untamable. And now, every being on this planet was watching him. The Emperor called for him before the throne again. The hall was filled with warriors, nobles and servants, their armor and robes flashing with colors under the crystal light. The boy walked in, not alone this time, but with the predator at his side. Each step of the beast shook the marble floor, and each breath from its chest made the guards shift uneasily. The crowd fell silent, all eyes on the human child who seemed too small for such power. The Emperor's face showed no fear, only a cruel smile. "You have the beast," he said slowly. "But one beast cannot hold a planet. Let us see if you are worthy of what you claim." The Emperor raised his hand, and the hall doors burst open. Warriors entered, dragging cages behind them. Inside the cages were creatures from the farthest lands of Valen, scaled hunters with claws sharper than swords, serpent-like monsters with wings that beat the air, and horned brutes that slammed against the iron bars with fury. The sound of their roars and hisses filled the hall. "These are the children of my world," the Emperor said. "If you are master of beasts, then prove it. Make them kneel." The hall erupted with cheers, the people waiting to see the boy crushed. The boy looked at the cages. His heart raced, but not with fear. He knew the Emperor had no interest in proving strength. This was a test meant to break him. He placed his hand on the predator's neck, feeling its steady breath. Then he stepped forward, closer to the cages. The warriors jeered, some shouting insults, others daring him to approach. Slowly, he raised both hands, empty and open. His voice was calm as he spoke, not to the crowd, not to the Emperor, but to the creatures locked inside. "I am not your enemy." The creatures thrashed, slamming against their cages. Their fury was wild, untamed. But as the boy continued to stand there, still and unshaken, something began to change. The predator beside him lowered its head and let out a single deep growl, not of anger, but of command. The other beasts froze. For the first time, silence filled the cages. The crowd gasped as one by one, the creatures stopped thrashing and stared at the boy. The Emperor's smile flickered. He leaned forward, his fingers digging into the arms of his throne. The boy did not move. He simply kept his gaze steady, his body calm. And then it happened. The serpent lowered its wings. The horned brute pressed its head to the bars. The scaled hunters crouched low, their claws digging into the floor. The impossible had happened again. The beasts had not broken the boy. They had bowed. The chamber shook with noise. Some shouted in awe, some in fear, some in anger. The Emperor raised his hand, demanding silence, but his voice could not cover the truth that every eye had seen. The boy had not only tamed one beast, he had commanded many. His power was no longer a question, it was a fact. The crowd whispered a word that began to spread through the hall like fire, ruler. That night, the city glowed brighter than ever. Fires of celebration lit the streets. Songs rose from the villages. The people, once silent under the weight of their emperor, now spoke with voices full of daring. "The boy will change everything," they said. "The emperor cannot stop him." In the palace, the servants bowed lower, their eyes brighter with secret smiles. Even the guards began to shift uneasily, wondering where their loyalty should rest. But in the shadows of the palace, the emperor's council gathered. They spoke in hushed voices, their words sharp as blades. "He cannot be allowed to rise further," one said. "Already the people whisper his name." Another snarled, "He makes the beasts kneel." What if one day he makes the armies kneel as well? The emperor listened in silence, his eyes dark. Finally he rose, his robe trailing behind him like a shadow. "Enough," he said coldly. "The boy thinks the beasts make him strong. Tomorrow I will show him what true power is." The stars above Valen glittered like watching eyes. The boy slept beside his predator, unaware that the real war was about to begin. The morning on Valen came heavy with silence. The air itself seemed tense, as though the world knew something dark was about to unfold. The boy woke in his chamber, the predator curled tightly beside him like a living shield. The servants who entered brought food, but spoke little. Their eyes shifted nervously to the door, their voices hushed, as if they feared the wall's might. "Listen," the boy sensed it too. Something had changed. The emperor summoned him again, but this time the hall was not filled with cheering crowds. Instead, only the emperor's most trusted generals and advisors stood by his throne. Their armor gleamed, their weapons ready, and their eyes cold. The boy walked in with the predator at his side, each step echoing in the silence. The emperor leaned forward, his voice smooth but sharp. "You believe yourself strong because beasts bow before you," he said. "But beasts are simple. They do not think. They do not scheme. Today, boy, you face not creatures of fur and fang. Today, you face warriors." The doors opened, and a line of armored soldiers marched in. They were the emperor's elite guard, taller and stronger than any the boy had seen before. Their movements were sharp, their faces hidden by metal masks carved with cruel designs. They carried long blades that glowed faintly, humming with alien energy. The general stepped aside as the warriors formed a circle around the boy and the predator. The emperor raised his hand, and the circle closed. "If you are ruler, prove it," he said. "Let us see if you can tame not beasts, but men." The crowd of advisors laughed, their voices echoing cruelly. The boy's heart pounded, but he stood his ground. He placed his hand on the predator's neck, feeling its steady breath. The warriors advanced, their blades raised. The boy knew this was no test of kindness, no chance to offer fruit or peace. These were killers, sworn to obey the emperor. Still he did not back away. He whispered, "Stay close," and the predator growled, its body coiling like a storm ready to break. The first warrior struck, his blade slicing through the air with deadly speed. The predator leapt, its massive paw slamming down with such force that the warrior's blade shattered. The soldier flew across the hall, crashing into the wall. Gasps filled the chamber, but the circle did not break. The others moved in together, their blades flashing. The predator roared, lightning crackling across its fur, but even its power could not block every strike. The boy ducked, rolling beneath a swing, his hands grabbing a fallen spear. He was no trained fighter, but he held the weapon with determination, his eyes burning with defiance. The battle raged in the hall. The predator tore through the circle, its fangs snapping blades in half, its roar shaking the walls. The boy fought beside it, striking when he could, blocking blows with desperate speed. Every cut on his skin burned, every strike against his spear shook his bones, but he refused to fall. The generals watched with disbelief as the boy and the beast fought together, moving as if they were one. Where the boy was weak, the predator was strong. Where the predator could not reach, the boy stood. Finally, the last warrior fell, his mask cracked, his blade broken. The hall was silent again, except for the heavy breathing of the boy and the growl of the predator. Blood marked the floor, armor lay scattered like broken shells, and the boy stood tall in the center. The emperor's smile was gone. His hands gripped the throne, his eyes burning with something between rage and fear. "Enough," he said, his voice low. "You may command beasts. You may even fight men, but you cannot rule." The boy lifted his chin, his voice steady, though his body ached. "You said if I tame the beast, the planet is mine. Now you're beasts. "Bo, your warriors fall. What else must I prove?" His words echoed through the chamber, bold and unshaken. The predator crouched beside him, its glowing eyes fixed on the throne as if it too challenged the emperor. The generals muttered in anger. Some calling for the boy's death, others warning of rebellion if he was killed. The emperor raised his hand, silencing them all. His voice was calm once more, but every syllable dripped with venom. "Then let the boy have his chance. If he wishes to claim my throne, he must face me." The hall trembled at the words. No one had challenged the emperor in decades. His strength was legend, his power unmatched. The boy's heart beat faster, but his gaze did not break. He nodded once, silently, and the predator growled as if it understood. The emperor's laughter filled the hall, but this time it carried no humor. "Tomorrow," he said. "Tomorrow. Boy, we see if a human can truly rule a world." That night, the city burned with whispers. The people spoke in secret of what they had seen. The boy had beaten beasts. He had survived the emperor's guard. Now he would face the ruler himself. Some were afraid, others hopeful, but all knew the truth. Tomorrow would change Valen forever. The day of the duel rose with a sky as red as blood. The winds carried the sound of drums across the land, summoning every city, every village, and every clan to witness what had never been seen before. The Emperor of Valen had declared open challenge, and all who lived under his shadow gathered to watch. The great arena, carved from black stone and lit by burning crystals, was filled with thousands. Their voices rose like a storm, their eyes locked on the stage where destiny would be decided. The boy stood in the center of the arena, the predator crouched at his side. He wore no armor, no crown, only torn clothes and a steady gaze. To the people, he looked fragile, yet something about the way he stood made even the strongest warriors uneasy. The predator's eyes glowed bright, its fur sparking with faint lightning as it growled low, warning all who came too close. Across from them, the Emperor entered, his presence shaking the air. The Emperor's armor was black crystal, forged from the heart of the planet itself. His crown rose like sharp wings, and his blade glowed with living fire. The people fell silent as he raised it, a weapon older than memory, said to drink the strength of any it struck. His voice carried across the arena, calm but heavy. "This world is mine," he declared. "No beast, no child, no outsider will ever take it from me." His words were law, but for the first time, there were whispers of doubt. The crowd had seen the boy tame the untamable. They had seen him stand against warriors. Now they wondered if even their emperor's power might fail. The duel began. The emperor moved with speed that defied his size, his blade cutting the air. With blinding light, the boy dodged, rolling across the stone floor as sparks flew where the blade struck. The predator lunged, its massive body slamming against the emperor, but he met it with one hand, his strength throwing the beast aside. Gasps filled the arena. The boy rushed forward, thrusting with a stolen spear, but the emperor's sword shattered it in a single strike. The boy fell back, his arms burning with pain, but his eyes never lost their fire. The predator returned, lightning crackling across its fur. It roared, striking again and again, claws raking against the emperor's armor. Sparks flew, the ground split, and the air trembled with power. But the emperor did not falter. He swung his blade in arcs of fire, forcing the beast back. His laughter rolled across the arena. "Do you see, boy?" he shouted. "Power is not in beasts. Power is not in hope. Power is only in those strong enough to take it." His blade rose high, ready to strike down the predator once and for all. The boy ran forward, throwing himself between the blade and the beast. The crowd screamed, certain he would be cut in two. But he lifted his hands, catching the blade against the broken remains of his spear. The metal burned, his skin tore, yet he held it back with every ounce of strength he had. His voice rang out, clear and strong. Power is not in taking. It is in protecting. His words echoed, and for the first time, the crowd cheered not for the emperor, but for him. The predator surged with a roar, its body blazing with light. It struck the ground, and lightning exploded outward, cracking the arena floor. The emperor staggered, his blade shaking in his grip. The boy pressed forward, pushing the weapon away, his strength not from muscles, but from will. The people watched, stunned, as the boy and the beast stood together, their bond unshaken, their defiance brighter than the emperor's fire. The emperor roared, his fury boiling over. He swung again, but this time the predator leapt high, crashing into him with all its weight. The ground split beneath them as they struck. The boy rose, grabbing the emperor's fallen blade. For a moment, the arena froze as the human child held the weapon of the ruler of Valen. The emperor's eyes widened, rage and fear mixing for the first time. The boy did not strike. Instead, he planted the blade in the ground and stood tall, his voice carrying across the arena. This world is not yours to take, it belongs to its people. To those who live, to those who fight, to those who hope. If beasts and warriors can kneel, then even kings must learn to stand with them. His words echoed like thunder, filling every corner of the arena. The people erupted in cheers, their voices shattering the silence of centuries. The emperor rose slowly, his body shaking with fury. His eyes burned as he pointed at the boy. "This is not over," he growled. "You may win the hearts of beasts and men, but you will never rule as long as I breathe." The predator snarled, ready to strike again, but the boy raised his hand. He did not smile, but his gaze was steady. "Then breathe, Emperor, for tomorrow this world will not fear you. Tomorrow it will rise." The arena roared, louder than it ever had before. The boy stood not as a challenger now, but as something more. The emperor still lived, but the battle had changed everything. Valen would never see him as untouchable again. The city of Valen did not sleep that night. Fires burned in the streets, not of war, but of rebellion and hope. Songs rose from the villages, drums thundered from the hills, and banners waved in the wind. The people had seen their emperor bleed. They had seen a boy with nothing but courage stand against him and live. For centuries, fear had been their chains, but now, for the first time, they felt the weight of those chains crack. The emperor retreated to his palace, his generals at his side, but even they whispered among themselves. His crown no longer seemed unshakable. His throne no longer seemed eternal. The boy's words from the arena echoed in their ears. Power is not in taking, it is in protecting. The predator prowled the palace gates, guarding the boy as if it were guarding the heart of the world itself. The emperor paced his chamber in fury, his blade lying heavy at his side. He had not been defeated, yet he had not won. And worse, his people had seen weakness at dawn. The boy returned to the great hall, not by force, but because the people carried him there. Crowds filled the palace steps, warriors laid down their weapons, and even servants once too afraid to lift their eyes now raised them proudly. The predator walked ahead, each step shaking the ground, its eyes burning with loyalty to its human master. The boy climbed the throne steps slowly, his torn clothes hanging loose, his face streaked with dirt, but his presence carried the weight of kings. The emperor sat waiting, his armor cracked, his crown tilted. He rose when the boy entered, his voice sharp. "You would steal my throne?" he said. "You think the love of beasts and the cheers of fools make you a ruler?" His words struck like arrows, but they found no target. The boy's voice rose steady, clear as the dawn. "I do not want your throne. I want your world free." The emperor's hand tightened on his blade, but the crowd stirred. Whispers grew louder, spreading like fire. "Free," they said. "Free." The word echoed until the entire hall trembled with it. The emperor raised his sword, fury blazing in his eyes, but before he could strike, the predator stepped forward, roaring so loudly the crystal walls shook. Soldiers rushed forward, but they hesitated. Their emperor stood alone, while the boy stood with beasts, with people, with hope itself at his side. The emperor charged, his blade blazing. The boy did not run. He stepped forward, meeting the strike. With nothing but his hands, the predator leapt, crashing into the emperor, knocking the crown from his head. The people gasped as the boy seized the blade once more. This time, he did not plant it in the ground. He raised it high, and the light caught the fire in his eyes. The emperor, broken and defeated, fell to his knees before him. The hall froze. For the first time in history, the Emperor Valen bowed not to a conqueror, not to a warrior of his own blood, but to a human boy who had stood where no one else dared. The people erupted, their voices shaking the skies. "Ruler!" They cried, "Protector!" The chants grew louder, until even the stones of the palace seemed to answer. The boy lowered the blade, his voice cutting through the storm. "I am no emperor," he said. "This world does not belong to me. It belongs to you, to the people who have lived in fear too long. Today you rise. Today you are free." His words thundered across the chamber, and the people fell to their knees, not in chains, but in respect. For them, he was not a king of power, but a king of heart. The predator knelt too, its glowing eyes fixed on him, a symbol that the wild itself had chosen him. The generals, broken by the people's roar, dropped their weapons. The emperor, stripped of crown and throne, was led away in silence. His reign had ended, not by blade alone, but by truth. When the sun rose high, the boy walked out of the palace gates, the predator at his side. He did not wear a crown, but the entire planet bowed to him. Not because he demanded it, but because he had shown them that even the weakest could rise against the strongest. That courage could tame beasts, defy rulers, and change the fate of worlds. The story of Valen would be told for ages. Of an emperor who mocked, of a beast no one could tame, and of a boy who did the impossible. He had no name that mattered to history, for in the end, the people gave him one that would echo across the stars. They called him the protector of Valen, and for the first time in centuries, the planet was truly free.